Good morning, everyone. Virgo, I want to start by making sure you are sitting with something. Before I tell you the reason, because the reason is going to reframe something that you may have been understanding in a way that is not the complete picture. And reframing changes things in the perception of what has been happening between you and this person, and in how you hold what you have been experiencing from their side in the time that has passed. Without the full explanation, that would have made their behavior more understandable than it seemed. Their heart is aching right now, today, not in the background noise way, of something that has simply not fully resolved, but in the active and present way of something that is working in them right now, with the particular urgency of something that has recently arrived or recently become unavoidable. In a way, it was not unavoidable before. Welcome. And let me tell you the reason, which is not what you think. What you probably think is that their heart is aching because of something external or because of something going wrong in their life or because of someone or something else entirely. That has nothing to do with you or has only a peripheral relationship to what exists between you. That is not the reason. Their heart is aching because of you, because of the specific and acute awareness of what exists between you and of the gap between where things are right now and where they wish things were, and the understanding that the gap did not have to be what it is. If they had made different choices in moments when different choices were available, but were not made for reasons that made sense at the time, and that make less sense now. In the clarity of retrospect and the specific pain of missing you, in the active and present way that missing works, when what is missed is specific and irreplaceable, rather than general and substitutable. I want to tell you the second part of the reason, because there are two parts, and the second part is the one that is truly not what you think, and that I need to describe carefully because it is more nuanced than the first part and more important for how you understand what has been happening in them in relation to you over the time of whatever distance has existed between you. Their heart is aching because they realized something, not something new, something they already knew, but that has arrived in the full weight of its implications, rather than only in the partial form that they had been allowing themselves to acknowledge, which was sufficient to understand the situation without fully feeling the implications of what was understood. The realization that arrived in its full weight is this: you did not do anything wrong. I want to say that clearly because it is what they realized in the form that it is now aching in them. You did not do anything wrong. Whatever happened between you, whatever created the distance, whatever produced the situation, that has them aching today. You are not the source of it, or not the primary source of it, or not in the way that the narrative that made the distance feel justified was framing it. They know that now, in the full and aching way of someone who has been protecting a version of events that placed some portion of the responsibility in a location that made the distance more comfortable for the person maintaining it, and who has now had to acknowledge that the version was not fully accurate and that the location of the responsibility was not where it was being placed. I want to describe what this looks like from the inside, because I think you deserve to understand the specific quality of what they are experiencing as the aching in a way that makes the aching meaningful rather than simply present. It looks like the specific discomfort of someone who has been telling themselves a story about a situation that allowed them to be more comfortable. In the distance, they were maintaining than they would have been if the story had been fully accurate, and who is now in the process of understanding that the story was not fully accurate and that the distance was therefore not as justified as the story was suggesting. That understanding, arriving in the full weight of its implications, produces a specific kind of ache that is different from the ache of missing someone or the ache of a situation that did not go well. It is the ache of accountability, of someone who is seeing clearly, perhaps for the first time, what actually happened and what their role in it was, without the softening lens of the story that was making it more comfortable to see the situation a certain way. That ache is the ache of conscience, and it is one of the most productive forms of aching that exists, because it tends to produce action. Eventually, when the ache becomes louder than the resistance to acting on what it is pointing toward. I want to speak now about what this means for you and for the connection and for what comes next, because the aching is not the ending of the story. It is a middle chapter, an important one, but a middle one that leads somewhere. Rather than concluding in itself, the aching is producing movement in them toward you or toward the conversation that needs to happen. For the aching to resolve in the way that the ache of conscience resolves when what it is pointing toward has been addressed honestly, rather than managed into something quieter or simply waited out with the hope that it will eventually fade on its own. Without the addressing, they have reached the understanding that the waiting it out is not working, and that the addressing is what is needed, which means they are moving toward you, even if that movement is not yet visible from your side of the distance between you. I want to speak now about the not what you think part in its fullest form, because I have given you part of it, but I want to give you the complete version so you have the full picture of what is happening in them today and why the aching has the specific quality it has, rather than a different quality that would be expected from the more obvious interpretation of their situation, the not what you think, is about the nature of what they miss. Because the missing is at the center of the aching. And the nature of the missing is more specific than the general missing of a person or a connection. What they miss most is not what you would expect them to miss, based on the surface of what was between you or the most visible features of the connection. What they miss most is how you made them feel about themselves, the specific version of themselves that existed in your presence and that does not exist, or does not exist in the same form. In your absence, I want to describe this specific missing because it is important and because I think understanding it will change something in how you understand what you are to this person and what your presence actually does. In the experience of someone who has been in it, in your presence, they are a better version of themselves, not because you require them to be better or because you hold them to a standard. That produces effort in the direction of improvement. But because something about how you are with them calls forward the best version without demanding it, without requiring it, simply by the quality of your presence and your attention and the way you receive them when they are being their most genuine self, they feel that version of themselves most clearly when they are with you or thinking about you or in the energy of the connection that exists between you, even in the absence of actual contact, because some connections maintain their quality. In the interior experience of one person, even when the external contact has been interrupted by whatever has created the distance between you, and in your absence, the version they are without you is less connected to what is best in them, less clear about what they value, less honest with themselves about what they actually want and who they actually are. When they are fully in themselves, rather than in the managed version of themselves that exists outside your presence, that is what they miss. The version of themselves that you call forward simply by being who you are in the full and unmanaged form that you bring to everything you are in. I want to come to you now and give you something to hold with this information that is specifically for you and what you need in this moment, rather than only what is happening for them. The aching in them is a signal of something that has not finished between you, something that still has a form it is moving toward that has not yet been reached, and that the aching is pointing toward as the thing that would resolve it if both people involved were willing to move in the direction of the honest conversation that the situation is requiring. Are you willing to be in that conversation when it is offered to you, in whatever form the offering takes? I am not asking you to initiate it or to offer yourself before you are ready. but to be open to receiving it when it comes, which it is coming, in the direction of the aching that is producing the movement, that is moving toward you. Today, right now, in the person whose heart is aching for reasons that are more about you than you knew, and more about what you call forward in them than the surface of the situation, was suggesting. I want to close by speaking about the not what you think one more time in its simplest and most direct form, because I think the simplest form is what will stay with you most usefully. After this message has ended, you thought their aching was about something else, or about someone else, or about a version of the situation. That placed you at a different location in the story of their current experience than the location you actually occupy. You occupy the center of what is aching in them today. Not because you did something to produce the aching, but because your absence and the circumstances that produced it are the thing that is aching in the most complete and specific form that the aching has been taking. Today, in the person who is carrying it, without you knowing how central you are to it, now you know. And what you do with the knowing is yours to decide. But know this, the movement is coming toward you from the place of aching that is pointing in your direction as the only resolution available to something that has been trying to resolve without you and failing because the resolution has always required you to be part of it. Their heart is aching badly today, and the reason is you, in the most complete and loving sense of what that means.